Tripod down. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Chris, and it's time to put this Clark axle back together. It's the last day of March, and I need to be getting the corn planter in here to do a few things to it. And I've got axle parts everywhere, so I figured the best way to make room and have workbenches and tables to work on is to throw this axle back together. It's all nasty and windy out today anyways, and drizzly. Who wants to work outside in that crap? So, if you recall from previous videos, the bearings were just a little loose on this pinion shaft. There's the race. It's a double race, kind of unique. But from the factory, the spacer was custom machined for the correct amount of bearing in play. And so if they got worn and were a little loose, you could order a kit from Oliver that was a thinner spacer and some shims. And of course that isn't available anymore. I looked online and I found some different shims that were going to work. I ordered them through Grainger. Fortunately, Grainger lets you have shipped direct to their branch without paying for it, and you can pay when you pick up, because they still haven't come in, and that's been well over a month. And so I had my machinist, thanks Mike, he knocked, I think he said 9 thousandths off the spacer, and then knocked me out some shims so that I can get this thing adjusted right. And of course I didn't really take much for measurements beforehand, so it's going to kind of be a hunt and peck thing. I guess I'll start with just the spacer and see how tight things get. I also need to blow the dirt and stuff out of it beforehand. Don't need to be squishing all that in there. It's been sitting around for a little bit. So yeah, I will start with this spacer that he knocked the 9 thousandths off from. Made sure it was all flat and square, and we'll see where we go from there. I've got my over and under tool I use for compressing the spring that I made up. And the window ain't really necessary in this, but it does kind of give us a view. And I've only got this in the press just because it doesn't take much pressure, but I don't have to beat it. I can actually move it down with more control. Hopefully that spacer tool is long enough. Let's see if I'm hitting. I don't think no, I shouldn't be. Well, that 9 thousandths that he took off might be perfect. Put a little more pressure to it. See if it gets too tight. Good job, Mike. That is, it turns freely. I don't really feel any end play. And let me look up. A lot of the stuff in the Oliver book is pretty vague. Well, another Mike emailed me some specs. And let's see, what's it say? 13 to 23 inch-pounds with pinion assembled in the carrier to turn it. Well, there's some slight resistance there, and that doesn't include the bearing drag from that other bearing. That's how they say to check it. And I don't have anything that goes down to an inch-pound. I think we're going to call that good. Well, that wasn't so hard. Guess I'll press this outer race off so we can get her into the carrier. And that needs a little clean up too. Shouldn't take too much to press it out. Just gotta make sure I'm not catching anything on the way out. I think that'll be good. Yep, bearing's missing down below. Okay, gave that one more washing. Just get that layer of dust and crud off from cleaning other stuff near it. You can see there's a race down there. That's for this barrel bearing, barrel roller bearing. And fortunately, it's a slip fit. It slides down in there. Now this isn't so much of a slip fit. I'll see what I can get to drive it in. May have to use the press. I use the press to get it out. Well, look what fits. My brake seal driver. You want to be careful about not hitting that shaft, because it can, well, that bearing, if it's tight, it could break the housing, or it could go on through like that, and well, now I've got a bit of a dilemma. See, it came through. Now I gotta get it lined back up and in the hole. Whoops. Rubber mallet. It works wonders. There we go. Okay, don't let that happen to you. It's probably gonna slide through again. There it goes. All right, we'll let that sit down there for now. The shaft has to be in because obviously the bearing does not fit through the hole. So we'll use the brake driver. To very slowly drive that in. Guess I should have stuck that baby in the freezer and shrunk it up a little. I could just set this in the press against this. It'd probably be gentler than what I'm doing. It must have heard me. It's fine in its home now. I think that's the bottom. And I did it again. And if it's not the tightest in there, here's where it gets interesting. I need to support that shaft from underneath with a spacer of some kind. Oh, I need something. Somewhere around 4 inches long. This is the old front pivot pin for the axle. It's 4.5 inches long. It's going to work perfect. To support that shaft, play a little bit of blind man's bluff there. Okay, don't want to forget the spacer and the bearing. It worked on the press, it should work over here. You don't go anywhere. Let's make sure you're still feeling right there. Yeah. There. I guess to test it. Oh yeah. Driver tool can now support it. Really need to put the yoke back on so we can tighten it down and make sure I didn't get something wrong on the press. That's how it shows to set the preload. Well, I guess now that I'm not beating on it anymore, I don't need to support that shaft. That'll keep things from tipping over. Unless I have to beat on this to get it on there, then we're back to square one. Well, it's already less end play than it was before. I did warm it up a little bit with a propane torch. Obviously not so much that I can't touch it. I think that helped a little. All right, let's torque this baby down and see how our end play feels. Ow. Okay, need something better than my hand to hold that back with. A couple more uggas just to be safe. Ow. Boy, there are a few things that are as annoying as a leaky air hose. Does that feel like about a 12 inch pounds? Or 13 to 23 is what it was, wasn't it? Without seal drag, which we don't have. I cannot feel any wiggle. Just a slight resistance to turning. I'm gonna call that good. Of course, now I have to pull that back off. It is coming. They put a sealant on, and I will too, on those splines so the oil doesn't wick out through them. Something I was going to point out and forgot before I start putting stuff together. You have your ring gears here, and you got this channel here, and that catches oil as the ring gear brings it up and throws it in there, and that's what lubricates this bearing. It comes down through this channel. There's also another hole down here that lets it drain back, so it kind of comes down through. There's holes in that double race that let it into the middle, and it seeps through the two bearings, and then it can drain out here so it doesn't build up and create pressure behind the seal. So that's where we're at now. Need to get the gasket and the seal, put the seal in here, put some aviation on stuff, and finish bolting her together. I went to my local AGCO dealer to get seals. This is the gasket that goes on there. Obviously it needs to line up with the hole. That hole right there is a drain hole that I was mentioning. And that gasket, 155-348A. The seal is a 155-346A. Also known as a National 411. That's 4 with 3 ones, 234. National 41-11-234. I did a lot of cross-referencing on these, and honestly, the AGCO price was right in line with everybody else. I didn't have to pay shipping because it come to my local dealer. And that's why part of the reason I went that way, support my local dealer so they can stay in business and keep supplying me with stuff I need. And also just, it was affordable. They, some stuff seems pricey, other things. Another thing that really surprised me on is filters are typically pretty reasonable through AGCO. So we'll drive that in there. Once again, the lip side, the back side towards the oil. This is a double lip seal. The outer lip helps keep the dirt out. And here's my seal driver. And there's my hammer. Back of this is all cleaned up. So just need to dope my gasket. The thickness of this gasket is not critical. Some setups, the cover sets your bearing preload. Obviously with this one, the yoke squishing down on the bearings and the spacer in between is what sets your bearing preload. So if this gasket is, I'm sure it might need to be there. There's a cutout in here for the flange or the edge of the gasket or the bearing to hold it in place. So it's best to get an OEM gasket, but a guy could probably make his one and not be too, make his own gasket, not be too worried about it. Like that. Aviation gasket comes off of these gloves a lot easier than my fingers. Gotta make sure this notch here is lined up. Like I said, this is what lets the oil drain back into the rest of the case. Yeah, that's right. And I have to finish cleaning my bolts. They're in here. And before I stitch it all down, put some aviation on these splines to kind of seal them up. They're a pretty snug fit, but they sealed them from the factory, so we're going to too. Put a little grease on the lip of the seal. Make sure that's lined up. And bolt her on down. I think I mentioned it earlier, taking it apart, but if you do need to just replace this seal, that's all it's leaking. There's no looseness and everything else seems good with your axle. Just take that nut off, pull the yoke off, and then you can pull this cap off, or you can leave it on there and just pry that seal out, drive a new one in, put the yoke back in. Don't have to tear the whole axle apart just to get to that seal. This one has 2 sets of holes drilled crossways, so that's what your cotter pin goes through the castle nut on. So it helps to try to line up. I guess in this case, I'm gonna pick this lower one, but I should have paid more attention when I was setting the bearing. as to which hole was closest. Fortunately, it's not coming off too hard like it did before. Now that the seal material is broke. Now that seal definitely adds some drag to it. And it's even lubricated. I think it said something about 500 foot-pounds of torque, which is basically go until the impact stops. I think that's what it said. That'd help if I grip it the right way. Ugga. Now, is it lined up with any kind of a hole? No. Yes. Going this way. I think that's where it was before. Go figure. Well, I'm still going to try to sneak one in there rather than try to take it back apart. We'll see. And I should have brought a punch. Oh look, an old water pump bearing. Perfect for the job. I'm ready to sit this in there. The bearings look really good. So I'm not replacing those. Teeth all look good. Spider gears seem fine. Ring gear has to set in this side with the open part, because if you put it on backwards, it's going to hit cast iron. I should have put my other glove on. And should have grabbed this differently. Ow. Ta-da! Stay. I marked my caps, and there are 2 stake marks over here on this side. So I just got to get my cap that's got the 2 stake marks on it. But on that side, and obviously the other one goes over there. Okay, keep that on that side. Keep them matched up. That's the big reason to keep these matched side to side, is so the threads that they cut in once it's all assembled are line up. So those nuts do their job. And now I need to get this locking pin out. Put that on. Put some bolts in. Just gonna finger tighten those for now. Why, sure enough, I got them on the wrong side. But that's why it's good to mark them. Dang it. That'd explain why this one was threading in so tough. Yeah, there's the 2 dots. There's 2 dots. That's much better. Yeah, it screws in much better. So now you see why to do it the right way. to mark your stuff. Let's turn this around. Certain positions it gets unbalanced and wants to tip over. Okay, let's try it this way where I set the nut in there first, get in those threads, put this on. There, I think I found its sweet spot. Now it's just as simple as turning. It needs to go that way to get closer to the pinion by quite a bit. It's not even engaging the teeth at this point. So I'll turn this nut in to move it that way. It's still kind of loose. Getting there. Okay, I think I got it a little too tight now because now I can't turn it. Let's back the other side off just a little. Okay, now that we got it set that close, I think I'm going to get it in the vise where everything can freewheel and turn. Right now it's standing on the pinion shaft, so that doesn't really give you a very good way to check things. Let's see, it says backlash should be set between 8 and 11 thousandths between the ring gear and pinion. And I love this bearing end. And this is like Clark. Oops. Differential bearing nuts to be adjusted to take up all slack in differential bearings. Tighten the bolts to 113 to 124 foot-pounds of torque. And that's all it says about it. It does say apply a coating between the lips of the seal, on boss provided on carrier, stamp serial number and carrier ratio, grease seal, differential assembly to be adjusted to obtain backlash of 8 thousandths to 11 thousandths between ring gear and pinion. All right, we're at that point. I've got to watch for that little red light when I'm making these videos because I did not recording. So I've got my dial indicator set up to read the backlash, and it's coming in at about, I'm going to jump it from 2 to 14. So that's about 12 thousandths, which is a little wide. So we are going to move this one out because I've got them pretty tight. Come on. We'll move that to where the next pin hole lines up there and put that pin in, but I don't want to put it all the way in because the magnet will catch it. The magnet for the base of the dial indicator. And then we should be able to turn this one in the turn that one just, yeah, I might feel it getting tight. That should shift this over that way just a little bit. Let's see what kind of reading we're getting now. I think I should be a little closer to the side of the tooth here. Hold on. Okay, let's see how that. Ooh, that took too much out. Only getting a couple of thousandths there. What I'm doing is wiggling this ring gear without moving the pinion shaft. So I can move it ever so slightly and feel it hitting the teeth without moving that. And that's too tight. So we're gonna go back to where we were. So let's see, I gotta loosen this other side up first. We'll take this pin back. So we want to go 1 notch there. And move this forward 1 notch here to keep the bearings in play good. Just a skosh more. Let's see how much that moves it. Now let's try to zero that back out. Let's see. Look at about 10 thousandths. Guess that's what we're gonna have to live with, because the other option is 2, which is too tight. And it's swinging from about 1 thousandths to 11 thousandths. So I think that's where she's gonna sit. So now I'll take this off and tighten up the 4 cap screws. Make sure we get these locking pins in. And that should be done. Well, I bought a new toy. We'll see how it compares to the old-fashioned. Got it set for 120 foot-pounds of torque. Let's swing it around so I can see it. Oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe I should get it around here where you can see it better, because there's, you know, room for all of us here. Not really. Right now it's set to keep track of peak torque, and it should beep when it gets to 120. Well, it says 111. Let's see if it remembered what I set it at. Yeah, it's set at 120. Foot-pounds. It says 100. Oh, okay. It beeps faster as you get there. Well, that's cool. This is with the old-fashioned. There, it just turned a little bit. Now I'll have to review the video to see what it showed. Hey, I'm ready to put the differential carrier back in the axle. Almost. Before I do that, there's something I do. We've done this for quite a few years here. We make up a bushing and insert it in here right behind where the seals go to help support the shaft. So here's what happens. Here's the inner half of the shaft, and it goes in like that. You got a seal here that keeps the oil in the middle, and it's grease out here where those balls are, if you watch the disassembly video. Well, and there's a little bit of groove worn each spot. You get some wear in there, and everything can kind of start sagging a little. Then the seal ain't running concentric or in the center. Then it doesn't hold the oil back. The oil gets in here and washes the grease out of the balls, leaks down through the bottom, and things start wearing even faster. So we measure up the two inside of the axle housing. Some depends on the age of the shaft. Some of them have a lot more surface here. This one doesn't have much. And make this bushing up So it's got room for oil to get, a little oil to get in there and support the shaft a little bit. You can see right here, the shiny spot. The seal rides there. So I'm not gonna get a whole lot of room on this one, but, and then there's the thrust washer that this goes up against. That kind of helps it hold centered up. But as things wear, that can let it go. So anyways, I'm gonna put her in there. Put a little Loctite sleeve retainer in there. Hold it good. The reason I'm doing that beforehand is, I've had them, you know, making them myself in the past. I had a machinist make these, Mike, again. But had them squeeze down just a little bit and get tight. And if the center's out, you can either drive them on through to machine them a little more if you have to. I don't think this is a critical dimension on the inside of this axle tube. So I don't know if you can really say for sure that one size is gonna fit all. We did measure them with a bore gauge and they both came out the same. So that's a good sign they're usually the same, but I've always custom made them each time and always forget to write down my numbers. So I figure, oh, the next one's probably gonna be different. And I should write them down just so I can compare and see how close each one is. I did clean that surface up in there. Beforehand. There. Well, that went pretty good. Feels solid. Between that and the sleeve, Loctite sleeve retainer, that's the number 640, in case you're wondering. That should keep her in place. I'll wipe the excess off, get the other one drove in, and then we can put the differential back in the middle. I've got silicone on this flange surface, not a boatload, but there was no gasket for this. It was just sealed with a sealant. And I'm ready to put that back in there. Let's see if I need hernia surgery. Tripod down. I tried stopping it and I destroyed it. The drill fell off. Things went south real fast. Now I got a two-legged tripod. All right, let's see if we can rescue this and do something. I think we're gonna have to switch the magnet base. Let's see how that goes. There we go. It just changes the balance of everything, that's all. These are just gentle love taps, mind you. Oh, it heard the word love and dropped right in. All right. That's a little more solid. Oops. Don't want to forget, there are 1, 2, 3 that take a cone, one of these babies, to help center it up. We will want to tighten those 3 first so that it does draw it in all nice and square. Those are essentially what they index with, so that it's all straight with the line of the shafts and everything. Let's hope I put it in right side up. I know I did, because the spot where they stamp in the gear ratio and the part number are always on top. There's that last cone. It feels good. So I think we'll call that the end of this part. Next part will be getting the actual axles assembled back together, all the seals and all that stuff. There's a little comparison. Basically the same axle, probably a different gear ratio in Herman than in the 1855. I appreciate everybody watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks again.